Hello everyone, the new Death Stranding trailer just released and it's very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and go through it and point out what I've seen as long as what I've seen others have seen. So let's go ahead and start the trailer. Everything is going to be a little sporadic. I don't really have any notes compiled. I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible, so just bear with me and I'm going to start the trailer right now. Okay. This is gonna be paused quite a bit.
Once there was an explosion, a bang which gave birth to time and space.
So he's talking about the Big Bang, I suppose. And then,
once there was an explosion.
okay, I'm gonna pause here. And then he mentions the same explosion, but he mentions that it sent a planet spinning in space. I don't really know what that could mean. I guess every planet spins in space, so it's kind of hard to speculate on what they mean by that. This first shot here, very interesting. We have a lot of almost decaying looking vegetation like grass and plants. I feel like that's a big theme of this trailer that's gone overlooked, is that this theme of like aging / decaying. We're going to play it from here and you'll just see that everything like looks like it's dying and growing really fast. And then it goes down and we pan up to Ritas here. He talks about a second explosion after the initial first one too. We'll get back to that later. Ritas is laying on the ground from what seems to be a car accident. To me this kind of looks like a different planet, not Earth, maybe Mars. But it's after watching this trailer it's kind of hard to tell what's actually going on. So right here we see this vehicle kind of crashed. And a man under the vehicle. Ritas does seem to be slightly injured, and I'm going to pause right here. It says on his legs Porter. That could be Guillermo del Toro's character we've seen from another trailer, or that could just be some sort of company that Ritas is working for. Let's continue. He has some kind of Indian dream catcher here on his back. Could be a lot of symbolism in the game relating to like Native Americans, or the thought of maybe spreading dreams, having dreams come to life, bad dreams, you know, that's what dream catchers are for. And let's continue. He stops over by this dead body that has what seems to be a golden skull on his face. And then we pan over to this guy in the background that has this light on that just seems to be looking forward and twitching around. We have this man, I'm pausing it here, we have this man that has like a French flag wristband. It could just be United States or French. And if we zoom in on the shoulders up there in the top right, we can see bridges. It's kind of hard to make out what it says beneath it, but we're going to need to pay very close attention to this man under the truck, because what it seems to do is it seems like whenever these things come, it seems that he rapidly ages, which is kind of what happens to those plants in the very beginning of the trailer. So take a look. Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. So you saw there in that shot that man looked very young, had brown hair. Besides his injuries, he looked like he was a very youthful person. And then what we have coming up here is this thing, this light almost blinking beside this man. What a lot of people are saying online is that it's possibly linked to those like baby stations or cages that they have around their stomachs, that maybe these babies can see some kind of like demon or whatever you want to call these things that are invisible. Maybe they can see them, and then the babies are actually hooked up to this device, and that's what's looking around and showing them where these things are. Let's continue. Right here, this man, I think it's right here. Yeah, look at, I'm going to pause it right here. It looks like he's getting wrinkles all over his face. He starts to get gray hair and his teeth start to decay. Just watch. Yeah, he even like looked like his mustache grew there a bit. I'm gonna pause it right there. Notice that this man has a blue wristband, and if we go back just slightly, the other guy on the ground has a red wristband. And I'll point that out later in the trailer when another scene happens, but it seems like almost that this wristband reads that your pulse, or like I guess for video game terms, like your life bar. This wristband can mean many things. Like it could be linked directly to your character's health bar, where maybe like the game doesn't use like a HUD, like Resident Evil 7 earlier this year, where like your wristband tells you how much health you have left. So let's continue from here. This thing starts to go wild as these invisible hands start moving forward, constantly blinking. Start walking. The hands seem to be crawling towards the truck, and then I'm assuming it's something about the gold. I want to say it's about this gold skull on this man that attracts this thing over here to around Norman Reedus. I think it's this dead body is maybe used as like a reincarnation tool, and maybe this thing getting sucked underground is what is going to be pulled into that man's like baby container or cage that is about to happen here. And then we see, if I pause it right there, we see almost his spirit lift out of the ground. If it's hard to see due to compression, I will draw an outline. But it seems like almost a spirit or just like a thing is rising up out of the ground. It's very hard to see, but it is there. And then here, it seems that if this is like some kind of other planet, at first this blood looked really weird to me, but I noticed that it's possible because of the atmosphere of the planet that the blood is actually boiling. Look, it seems like it gets really hot. Like it starts glowing and lighting, and then steam actually comes off of it. Here this thing notices that this man, he started screaming. Look how old he was there. I'm going to pause it right there. If you look, his hair was completely gray, and he was almost like at the verge of dying from old age. And there, you can pause it, you can see like there's little black beings behind him. I think those would be related to the things at the end of the very first trailer and at the very end of this trailer. See there, he's actually begun to like go through balding. He has a big bald spot in the middle of his head when prior he had fully grown brown hair. And his wristband, like I said, is completely red. He pulls out his gun to, what I presume, put this man out of his misery. The ground sinks into the soily thing to pull him out of the truck, drags him away. And then he says the word Sam right before he shoots the man, which is what he calls Norman Reedus' character. This man floats down. What I think this could be is that spirit that lifted up out of the ground from that golden skull may actually be this guy, because he's wearing the same type of getup, or he also has one of those light things on his side. And if you look a little closely when the lightning flashes, his face sort of looks gold, but more importantly, he has one of those baby cage thingy devices on him. Things start to go a little wild here. He's shooting at the air wherever this thing is pointing its light, because he obviously can't see him for himself. Just a weird Easter egg. This guy on the bottom right actually looks like it's Hideo Kojima. Just like the glasses and the hair, everything. It's just a small little thing I've noticed. He throws his baby cage into the oily liquid for Reedus to pick up. I don't know if that specific one has any importance. Right there, he tries to shoot himself because I'm assuming whatever the hell he's going to is going to be worse than death. Very important piece coming up right here. Everything starts floating up into the sky. You can see some umbilical cords on the right. Right here, I'm going to pause it. This man takes out his knife to kill himself because wherever he's going, he knows that death would be better than what I think is going to be like an infinite purgatory where you're just constantly in pain, where the dream catchers come in place. Pausing it right here just a little further, you can see his wristband after stabbing himself has turned yellow, and then it proceeds to turn red the more he stabs himself until he dies. So Ritus there picks up the baby cage, and then his thing activates. Prior to this scene, his light thing has not been activated, so that's why I think that these babies are linked to this. Also in this scene, if you look on the bottom right, there's crabs floating up, and we have not seen any type of life forms on this planet yet. Just interesting little detail, like in the beginning of the original Death Stranding trailer from, I think, 2016, we did see like dead crabs and whales as a big theme in that trailer. The camera pans up to what seems like a giant colossal-sized human with an umbilical cord coming out of its stomach. These umbilical cords seem to be linked to the being's hands, and it opens up almost like an eldritch horror style and eats this man. Ritus looks away there, and everything goes white. I want to say that maybe if you're looking at these things, when they reveal themselves, maybe bad things happen. So he's thrust into water here, just randomly out of nowhere, maybe teleported to a different dimension. And if you look closely here, his body was clean, and then it slowly gets these handprints all over it. So there's more bodies here than we had saw prior. There was, including the dead man and Ritus, that was 4 people, and here we see 6 people. So, and then we see like some kind of giant spider Cthulhu monster come and swim by. There's actually more people than I thought. The fish and then whales, which is big theme of the prior trailers. And then it right here, we can see the Bridges logo, and I think it says the United Cities of America. It's very hard to tell what this says. United Cities of, yeah, it's really hard to tell. And then here you can pause and see Ritus's Dreamcatcher has left his backside. All these bugs floating around Ritus, these little fish / bugs, are floating around him. And then it goes into his mouth, where a baby appears. Why the baby is appearing? Well, that is very hard to talk about. It might have something to be like 2 different dimensions, where like people maybe have like babies transplanted inside them to help them physically see these beings. Like how Ritus, whenever he turned and looked, he was able to see that man floating above the car, and then the other guy wasn't. So maybe that's something Ritus has. Like in the 2016 trailer, he has C-section scars, so maybe he has like some kind of thing implanted inside him to allow him to see those beings. And then it flashes back. Ritus is on the ground, no longer underwater, and he ends up throwing up here. So he throws up those bugs that were floating around him. And then the interesting thing was, I thought that they weren't underwater anymore, but it seems like these bugs crawl up something or maybe float up something. So it is possible he's underwater still. So this ends a lot like the 2016 trailer. With these beings floating in the sky. So I was wondering for a while, what is that big black thing in the center of the crater? And what a lot of people have pointed out is that it might actually be a giant handprint. And I honestly believe it. It does look a little bit like a giant handprint. Like if you look at how all the strings of it lunge out forward, and it looks like a giant thumbprint there on the right. He then continues to talk about these explosions. And that concludes that trailer. Some other things I want to point out here. Kojima tweeted this image out on the 10th of March 2017. He says, "I'm not playing around. This is actually part of my job." You can see figurines of like Matt Malgeson in the background, which is the exact scene of that Death Stranding trailer, except for instead of Mads, it is Norman Reedus in the trailer. And that body on the ground with the golden face skull is taken place by a little baby. So it is possible that that thing was turned into a baby. Another thing to point out here is that there's some interesting things. If you sync up the 2016 trailer and the brand new trailer to when Norman Reedus is standing up and looking at the camera, it seems that the baby, whenever it disappears from his arms, appears in his stomach, giving you the thumbs up. So I'm going to leave the rest of the video with that footage. Stay tuned and subscribe for more Death Stranding style content or just any theories in the future. Thank you very much. Have a great day.